For years, we all kind of thought cybersecurity was a problem for the IT department, right? Something to be handled down in the server room. Well, that view is now dangerously, and I mean expensively, outdated. In the world we live in today, the responsibility for cyber risk has made a huge leap, moving from the server room right into the boardroom. So let's dig into what this new mandate really means for you. So let's just ask the big question right out of the gate. Is cyber risk really just for the IT folks? Is it something you can just delegate to your chief information security officer, your CISO, and then, just move on to the next thing on the agenda? Well, the US government's lead cybersecurity agency, CISA, has a pretty clear and direct answer for us. No, it's not IT's problem anymore. The ultimate accountability now sits squarely in the boardroom. Boards must own this risk. And this isn't a suggestion. It's really the new reality of corporate governance. And that brings us to the board's new mandate. We're going to explore this fundamental shift and really try to understand how cyber risk has gone from being just a technical headache to a core strategic issue that every single organization has to get right. This right here, this says it all, doesn't it? The old view was that cyber was this technical thing, stuck in a silo, a cost center, all about firewalls. But today, the game has completely changed. It's now seen as a core business risk, owned by the board, and tied directly to your overall strategy. It's not just a shield anymore, it's an enabler for safe innovation and growth. The big takeaway is this: we've moved from defense to strategy. Okay, so it's one thing to say you own the risk, but what does that actually mean in practice? Let's break down what cyber exposure looks like from a boardroom perspective. We're moving from the why it's your job to the what you really need to understand. A good definition of cyber risk is so much bigger than just hackers. It really covers 4 distinct areas. You've got the threats themselves, sure, but also the processes you have to manage them, the strategic side of new tech, and of course, the huge financial, legal, and reputational damage that can come from an incident. It's the whole shebang. So as a director, your job really breaks down along these 4 key lines. You've got risk oversight, of course. Then there's making sure cyber resilience is baked into your digital strategy. You're also responsible for building good governance and a security-first culture. And, this is a big one, managing disclosures and keeping that trust with your stakeholders when and if things go wrong. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds a little defensive, right? Like you're just playing goalie, trying to prevent losses. But there's a totally different way to look at this. Strong cyber governance isn't just about dodging bullets. It's about building a stronger, more competitive business. Because when the board is really engaged and knowledgeable on this, the whole organization levels up. You start asking smarter questions, you pull cyber into the main enterprise risk framework, you set the right tone from the top, and what does all that do? It allows your company to chase after digital innovation more boldly because you have the confidence that you're growing safely. Okay, so we've got the why and the what. Now for the part you've probably been waiting for, the how. Let's walk through a super practical framework for action. These are best practices you can start to implement for truly effective board governance. And if you're wondering if this is still some fringe idea, think again. Around 74%, almost 3/4, of the biggest US public companies have already written board-level cyber oversight directly into their charters. This isn't an emerging trend anymore. It's fast becoming the standard for good governance. The first few steps are all about building the foundation. 1, define exactly who on the board owns this. Is it the full board, the audit committee, the risk committee? Get it down in writing. 2, make absolutely sure a senior exec, like your CISO, has clear responsibility and, crucially, a direct line to you. And 3, bust cyber out of that IT silo and make it part of your main enterprise risk conversation. So once that structure is in place, the real work starts. Your ongoing job includes regularly reviewing key risk metrics, running what-if drills like what do we do in a ransomware attack, and keeping a very close eye on your supply chain. And of course, you're overseeing the budget to make sure the money is going where it needs to go to protect your most critical assets. All right, let's get tactical. To be a truly cyber-savvy board, you need the right tools in your toolkit. And one of the best tools is asking the right questions. So here are the critical questions you should be asking in your very next meeting. First up, this one sounds so simple, but I promise you it's incredibly powerful. Can management clearly tell you the top cyber risks? And even more important, can you find them listed right there alongside financial, operational, and legal risks in your main risk register? If they're not there, you have to ask why. This next question is absolutely crucial. Look, a plan sitting on a shelf is basically useless. The real question is, have you tested it? Have you run a tabletop exercise? Do you know who's calling who at 3 a.m. when a breach hits? You've got to pressure test that plan before a real crisis does it for you. You know, it's a scary thought, but so many of today's breaches don't even start inside your own company. They start with a vendor, a supplier, or some service provider. Your security is really only as strong as your weakest link. You need to demand total clarity on how management is watching this critical external risk. And finally, let's bring it all the way back to strategy. When you talk about the cybersecurity budget, is it framed as this necessary evil, just a cost center you have to deal with? Or is it talked about as a strategic investment that allows the business to innovate and grow safely? Honestly, the way you frame this question changes everything. So, at the end of the day, the journey we've just talked through is all about this transformation, moving from being a passive board that just gets IT reports to being an active governing body that actually drives resilience. It's about turning one of your biggest risks into a source of strength and a real competitive advantage. So I'll leave you with this final thought to take back to your organization. When you really look at your board's approach to cybersecurity, is it just a defensive shield, or have you managed to turn it into a strategic enabler that's actually powering your business forward? The answer to that question will define your company's resilience for years to come.